Today is Saturday, April the 13th, so I'm really doing the summary for Friday, April the 12th. So here's Fin. I love the FinViz page. I hope you've been using it. For the most part, it's free, but they do have a premium service. The Dow started out and ended at the same spot. S&P 500 started out, ended a little bit up. I mean, it started out here, didn't it? Ended a little bit above that, but not at its highest point of the morning. Nasdaq had this big dip in the middle of the day and came back to rally to above the start because it opened the day down here. So Nasdaq had a good day. But if you can look, here's your relative volume. So you can see that the Dow stocks traded a little bit above 1 for relative value. Nasdaq was a little low on average volume, and the S&P 500 was pretty close to average volume. The advancers to decliners were 60% to 35%, which takes us now to the market oscillator. Wow, I guess you heard that. We're going through a little bit of a storm down here in the south. So we're seeing this choppiness, right? And we're looking for it's going to be unchanged with a reading of 434 positive to negative. So this represents Friday. We're churning. I mean, we've been talking about churning now for some time. Let's move on to our charts, and let's start with the S&P. And let's look at the weekly because that's the one that we've been looking at for some time now and all week. Remember, we started out Monday where price was exactly at the top of this candle. The wick. Tuesday it was at the top of the candle. Wednesday and Thursday it was within the wick, and we finished above the wick. So that's breaks clear, and we've had now 3 successive weeks of upward movement in the S&P 500. So we are definitely going to test 2932. Possibly, as high as these wicks, which is 2941. But if this was the highest close, 2929 or 2930 is certainly what we're going to test. Will it happen this week? Yeah, it's quite possible it could happen this week. 2907 is where we closed. It's quite possible that we could test it by Wednesday. And you can almost be guaranteed to short the market by selling the SPY or buying SPY puts as soon as it hits that value. You're going to make some short-term money because it'll never go right through on its first attempt. Having said that, now there's going to be a big China deal announced, but there won't be, not this week. Okay, next, Apple. Apple ended at 199 on a weekly basis because that's, again, the chart we're looking at. The Chiku span got its support way back here on the June 30th candle. That wasn't support on June 30th. The support was actually 26 weeks ahead of that. Here's where the support actually occurred in January. But we are in the cloud. We finished off the highs of the week, but we still had another up week. So the Chiku span, which bounced off the 200 here and gave us more confidence because that was exactly the same time that it was entering into the cloud. That's no coincidence, folks. That's the way the cloud system works. There are coincidences and you pay attention to them. So now we're heading up. We're in this area next week. So resistance is going to be 212, and guess what? That value is also the highest point in the cloud. But next week, our high point in the cloud is going to be 209, 210. It's possible we could get there. This is earnings week, so we had good bank earnings on Friday. This week, we're going to see some technology stocks, some industrial stocks. We won't see Apple, so keep your eye on earnings for other companies, which will incentivize people to buy Apple ahead of earnings or to sell Apple ahead of earnings. I am still short puts, and I think I'm going to update my video on why I sell puts with part 4 and tell you just exactly where my put positions are. When Apple does this kind of thing, or this kind of thing where it has a narrow range week and ends up at the bottom of its high of the week, that's when selling puts is just a killer. It far outperforms owning the stock. Let's go to Caterpillar. Caterpillar has closed that gap. Now, it closed the gap last week. It is up against the gap this week, so we can say gap filled, it's gone, we don't look at it anymore, and we are definitely on our way to completing this Gartley pattern. And a Gartley pattern is what? Gartley pattern is when you have a move down, or could be the inverse of this, but in this case it's a bullish Gartley, a move down. The next move up comes to 618.618 of the X to A move. That tells you that a Gartley is possible. It pulled back to 0.886. Anywhere in this gray shaded triangle would have been valid for a Gartley, but it bounced exactly at 88.6, another important Fibonacci number. Completion would be of a Gartley would be when we get to 0.786 of this X to A move, and that is 149.52, and that's where we're headed. I am still long Caterpillar. I believe that is where we're headed, 149. And look at where we are on the weekly chart. Next week our candle is going to be in here, so we could have resistance at 145, and then the following week we will be breaking into the cloud, unless we have a disastrous week and we end up down here. So let's take a look at Caterpillar's earning date. That's important to keep an eye on. So I'm looking at another, I'm disconnected, darn it. We had a power failure yesterday, so I've been disconnected from Thinkorswim, so I don't know what the earnings date is. Let it restart, and then I'll come back and tell you what it is after it's booted up. Gold finished the week with this doji pattern, undecided, support on the 50 exponential moving average. We should see, the cloud tells us that we'll see gold churning a little bit. The Chiku span, where is it? Still above the clouds, the candles. We want it to finish above this value next week to stay Chiku span in the bullish area. So we want gold to finish above 2238. Okay, and where's 2238? It was the high of this week. Pretty neat, huh? Not a coincidence. Intel. I told you that I got spooked and sold at 55.14. If you didn't, good for you. You had a great week. And this just tells us here that the Chiku span is wild and free. We've had 3 good weeks. We're definitely heading to 57.03, but I'm not going to get in for just $1. I guess I could, but it's earnings period, so I'm waiting. Let me start Thinkorswim again here, and we are waiting. Anyways, Intel is going up. The other one we look at is this other chip maker, which had a doji week. This is a daily, and our Chiku span is out in the clear. So on a daily basis, we're moving up, and we're heading towards this price target of 54.48 that I've indicated earlier. On a weekly basis, the Chiku span is still underneath the candles. We've seen it underneath the candles for some time. So resistance next week will come at the bottom of this candle, which is 54.48-ish right there. Let me just make sure that we were looking at Intel's weekly chart. We were. So Caterpillar, let me tell you what the earnings report time for Caterpillar is. It has a dividend coming up, by the way, of 86 cents. That was announced, I don't know when that was announced, but that will go ex-dividend this week on the 18th of 86 cents. So the stock is going to drop in the area of 86 cents on April the 18th. Its earnings conference call, so earnings is going to be April the 24th. So not this week, but next week, before the market opens. So mark that down on your calendar for the 23rd, that the following morning at about 7:30, 8 o'clock, Caterpillar will have released their earnings. And WDC is on the 29th after the market. Sorry, you're not looking at my screen. So I'm reading from Thinkorswim's screen, and it's telling me when the earnings are for these stocks. So thanks very much. Have a good week. I think it's going to be another good week next week. And of course, it's all going to depend on the earnings that come out Monday night and Tuesday morning.